And we are live. Welcome into the Pacers post-game show as they cough up this one 121 to 117. The final tonight, Monday night at Madison Square Garden. A disappointing close by the Indiana Pacers tonight, one they absolutely should have had, and I even tweeted about it. With about 4 minutes left in this one, the Knicks were hanging around, keeping things interesting, and the Pacers failed to put them away, and that's something they're absolutely going to regret following this one. Where was Tyrese Haliburton? TJ McConnell stepped up big. A huge third quarter for Miles Turner was notable. Hartenstein hitting a half-court shot just before halftime, as halftime starts really, and they win by 4. That completely changed the game ultimately as well. We'll get into all of that, and of course, Jalen Brunson's monster game here on the Fieldhouse Files post-game show. We're doing one of these for every single Pacers playoff game. The comments are off and firing. I love this right now. Fans are excited, fired up, pissed off at officiating, which is reasonable. The fact that we had three challenges in the final 4 minutes, that's troubling to me. Zach Zarba's fantastic. I thought he got that Jalen Brunson call absolutely correct right in front of him, where Brunson threw it off Haliburton, but then it hit Brunson and went out of bounds. That was well done by his part. But the fact that you have to have all those challenges, 3 of them successful, I thought the 4th might be as well on Miles Turner. That moving screen, what are we doing there? 46 feet from the basket, probably. Doesn't change too much in what's going on. I'm sure we'll get into that as well on here. But ultimately, what it came down to were those final 4 minutes. What Jalen Brunson did, outscoring the Pacers by himself 12-8, as the Pacers went from up 5 to ultimately losing the game. The Pacers did not execute late. Tyrese Haliburton struggled. Is his back hurting more than he's alluding to? You got to wonder about that. Is that hamstring still a thing? Because nonetheless, he did not look like himself, did not play like himself. He played more like the version of Tyrese that we saw coming out of the injury and out of All-Star break, where I wrote he needs a reset because that was disappointing. Tyrese had 3 turnovers in the final, I think 343. On a night when the turnovers were not a big issue for the Pacers, just 8 of them, but they collapsed there late in the final 4 minutes, and Brunson, 21 of his 43 in the fourth quarter. I'm sensing a lot of Pacer fans on here and others a little bit fired up, pissed off, and frustrated after this loss. Let me scroll up here on the comments here on YouTube. I'm also going to be posting this on the Fieldhouse Files podcast today. I had a preview for the series, which you can still go back and listen to with Steve Popper of Newsday about this series. Josh Hart, I thought he'd have a huge impact. DiVincenzo was outstanding at both ends of the floor. He was great defending Haliburton, and he hit that big 3, kind of the go-ahead 3-pointer here late in the game. Flame Keepers is throwing a flamethrower to get this started. He says Haliburton has to play better. Absolutely. Officiating was god-awful. Not that bad, but yes, it definitely needs to improve, especially in those key moments. Nesmith needs to guard Brunson, not Nembhard. Yeah, but then that becomes a challenge. I think I like where it is right now with Nembhard starting on him. Actually, in fact, TJ McConnell did better than anyone in that first half. And I'm not talking offense. I'm talking slowing down Brunson. Brunson had 10 of their first 12 points. And by halftime, Brunson had 18. So he only scored 8 points the rest of that half. And then obviously went off in the fourth quarter. Let's get someone else's perspective. RMK says, worst officiating of all time. Can't change my mind. Were you here for the Larry Johnson shot or several other disappointing performances? There's been some. Don't be prisoner to the moment. There were a couple of cheap calls. Absolutely. You're right. That were costly. That impacted this one. Fouls, not detrimental. We saw the Knicks shoot 26 free throws. The Pacers at 19. CMNT is back. He says they aren't even trying to hide it anymore, is what we can all agreed with. See, if I assume you're talking about NBA wanting Knicks to move on, NBA telling the Knicks to make sure they win. That stuff doesn't happen. I will never believe those storylines. There are too many individuals that would have to be in on it. Too many people that would have to believe in it. And some dumbass would talk about it after the fact. He'd be at a bar and say, can you believe this happened? So I don't believe in those conspiracies whatsoever. I think the environment is awfully challenging, and that includes the officiating, the heat of the moment, feeling the crowd on top of you. MSG is one of the best. I think MSG is one of the best, is the best atmosphere in the NBA. I think Crypto.com with the Lakers is the best overall production. And from a best basketball standpoint, it's hard to beat Gamebridge Fieldhouse if you're strictly talking about seating and such for that. Man, a lot of comments. I'm going to try to get through them here. Derby says, ghost kicking called. Did the Pacers in? What a disaster. I assume you're talking about the offensive foul there. Oh, no, the kicking call. Yeah, absolutely. Forgot about that one. What was that? The kick ball. I forget when that came. There was so much that happened in those final few minutes, but I remember Neesmith obviously said it was all hands, and that's what it looked like on the replay as well. The Knicks not only kept the ball, but then scored right after that. Yeah, DiVincenzo 3-pointer, 118-115 with 39 seconds left, and that was the go-ahead 3-pointer as I referenced early. That was a difficult call. To the points earlier about officiating, those are the tough ones. That one, the moving screen, several others you can kind of understand. It's very difficult. These players are flying up and down the court and playing an intense level. There's some notable news. Zach Zarba, a pool report note. So you're getting this just as I'm getting it to my inbox here. About the kicked ball. This was conducted with Fred Katz, my guy. I'm going to be on his podcast tomorrow. So check that out. He asked about the kick ball. Here's what Zach Zarba, the crew chief, said. Quote, on the floor, we felt that it would be a kicked ball violation. Post-game review did show that it hit the defender's hand, which was legal. So you got the clarification. It doesn't change anything, but there you go. Follow-up question. Could the Pacers been allowed to challenge the kickball call? Zarba adds, quote, a kicked ball violation is not reviewable and not subject to a coach's challenge. The three things that can be challenged: fouls, goaltends, and out of bounds. So there you go on that. Doesn't change anything, but at least you have that clarification. They got it wrong, and the Pacers could not challenge it. Those you have to live with, unfortunately, if you're a fan out there. PJ's welcome. You said you'd be in here. Here you are. He said, need to get Siakam more involved in game 2. Make sure everyone plays the same, and the Pacers are good. I agree, especially in the first half. Felt too timid. He was tentative in what he was doing out there. That was one of the big things after halftime that I needed to see. Siakam at the break only had 6 points. I remember among the 9 rotation players, Siakam was the last amongst that group, to score. That's unacceptable. Not only is that on Haliburton and the other players, but it's on Carlisle and Siakam himself to assert himself. I know there's a feeling out period early on after getting the trade there, January, February. Not anymore. There's no time to figure that out right now. If there's a spot, he needs to assert himself because he had success against his former teammate in OG Anunoby. So we need to see absolutely more of that. Derby says DiVincenzo with the flop. Yep, we saw that. Just be you. Yeah, you recognize Tyler Ford, the second official tonight. He went to Ball State. He says, I can't believe Tyler Ford, a fellow chirper, has done us in. Man, I have a lot of comments trying to get to here. Let's see if I can fly through these. Ryan says, what's the deal with the technical on Nembhard? There was no technical on Nembhard. There was no technicals in this game. I think what you're referring to is that late foul. He fouled, I believe it was Brunson, before the ball was inbounded. So what that means is any player can shoot a technical foul shot. Then then I believe then you get 2 free throws. So at the end of the game, then I think that's what happened. Yeah, then Brunson. No, you had to foul again. So, but that's what it was ultimately. Is you got to wait till the ball is put into play to foul. That happened with Ben Shepherd early on in the game. So there's a couple of foul shots, and Brunson made a couple of those. Jalen Brunson tonight, perfect at the free throw line, 14 for 14, nearly made more than the Pacers as a team, 15 for 19. He's such a good player, such a good foul shooter. And so that's the situation. Welcome back, MK Sinks, as he makes it 7 for 7 here on our post-game shows during the playoffs. He mentions the free throw shooting, too many cheap fouls called in favor of Brunson. this game one versus game one against the Bucks was certainly an improvement, but enough still. Yeah, a lot of things you can take away as positive, but I think it all centers back to Tyrese Haliburton. If Tyrese is like he is tonight, the Pacers are winning this series. You can hype up depth. You can hype up a bench. You can mention how the Pacers bench handled them and outscored them 46-3, I think, tonight. That's not going to win the series. That's not going to be good enough for playoff basketball. So that's a real challenge. Derby says, like Shaq said, Indiana needed to absolutely steal game one. I don't think they needed to, but man, that would help you a ton, especially the way in which they played. They had the lead. They had the early success. You had quieted Brunson until the fourth quarter. You keep Brunson to about 30 points per game, you can live with that. You really can. Hartenstein got into foul trouble. Miles Turner had a tremendous game as a whole, I would say. Finished with a team-high 23 points, 9 in the third quarter, including that three-pointer to end the third. You felt some positive momentum. But then we saw the Knicks not go away, and I think that was one of the changing points in this one. Instead of the Pacers pushing their lead into double digits, and there were no double digits leads in this one. Instead of the Pacers going up 15-16, forcing a timeout, we saw the Knicks answer with an 8-0 run, and then it was a tie game. Then you had those reviews. Then you had that moving screen, and you can't put it into someone else's hands. You have to really remove the doubt and take care of it on your own. And I thought that's where the Pacers failed in this game. On top of that, where was TJ McConnell in the fourth quarter? I wanted to see more of him. I thought it was a little bit concerning that he was playing 16 minutes in the first half. But, I mean, in the second half, he only played 6 minutes. You need more when that was your star player. To close the game, he only went in for an offense-defense substitution with Miles Turner to go out there, possibly foul and whatever. I need to see him in the fourth quarter. We talk so much about seeing the hot players stay on the floor. That was indeed the case that we needed to here in this one. PJ says everyone expected the Pacers to come out scared, and they did the opposite of that. The series is going in Indy's favor. Who expected them to be scared? I didn't expect that at all. I didn't expect the Pacers to win this one, but I didn't expect them to come out scared or timid or afraid of the moment. Opposite of that. Remember, they play good and rise to the moment against quality opponents. I'd be more scared if it was the San Antonio Spurs out there because they fall down to their opponents. Knicks shouldn't have had that challenge out of bounds. And all right, we're getting a lot of officiating. I'd rather keep officiating out of this a little bit because we all know you don't need to say what more is out there. Laura says the refs favored the Knicks. Flagrant bias by the refs. I disagree with that. I think it was just a couple of bad foul calls. I don't think it was bias by any means. You can be prisoner of the moment maybe in the crowd and things like that. But I think when they missed the call, and I was reading, if you're just joining us, I read Zach Zarba, the crew chief, what he said about that kickball called on Neesmith when he really got it on his hands. It was not challengeable. Those are just mistakes. I truly do not believe, I promise you, that these officials go out there and look up at the score and go, all right, Knicks down by 2. Need a call in favor of the Knicks. Okay, Jalen Brunson, get him to the there's too much on the line. Guy, there's scandals and things like that would happen. I don't believe in that. I do believe in prisoner of the moment, getting caught up in emotions, getting caught up in the festivities, maybe not paying attention or just not being a good official. I'm good with that. For example, like that moving screen, I don't think that was necessarily in favor of them. I think that was a bad read by that official that we need to look back on. Derby says the coach can't challenge it, but the refs can get together and get it right themselves. They can if another official clearly saw it and has a different vantage point. They can overrule them. So let's take a block charge. If you call a block and I call a charge, generally you go off of who had the best vantage point or who has the seniority, let's say. So if Zach Zarba, the crew chief, is assertive and dominant and knows he had the call right, he's going to overrule it, presumably, in those situations. But yeah, you can't review something like that. What you would have, I think, if you're talking about the kick ball versus the moving screen in that situation, with the kick ball, you'd probably call it an inadvertent whistle. It'd be an inadvertent whistle and be Knicks ball still because they had the possession. I do not think it would be given Pacers basketball. Let's talk more about the game rather than officials. What do you guys say about that? I think that's the only thing you can add to this rather than calls. Although Jacob adds, why are only certain things reviewable? should be able, rather than all calls. You got to limit it to some point. I will say, I now come from the belief that I almost think we should banish replay because, in general, you have too many things like this. I mean, how many? I don't want to watch 3 replays in the final 2 minutes. There's going to be wrong calls and so many things like that. I think if I had it my way now, after seeing replay for 10 years, I think I would limit it extensively to things like Hartenstein's 3-pointer half-court heave at the half. You can look on monitor while the teams are in their locker rooms and say, was it good, confirmed, or not? Things like that, out of bounds during a timeout, stuff like that. But whether it was a moving screen or a kick ball or goaltending, I don't know, man. At some point, you just got to leave it up and understand the elements and play on. Because I will say, for example, keep this in mind. With 3 challenges in the final 2 minutes, that helps the Knicks. The Pacers want to play fast. They want to get out in transition. You look at the minute allotment, Josh Hart, 48 minutes. Brunson, DiVincenzo, 44 minutes. The Pacers' highest total went to Pascal Siakam, 37 minutes. So you bet the Pacers should be upset that those stoppages gave the Knicks, especially Brunson, time to regroup, time to rest, time to relax. That's the worst thing probably about the challenges in the aggregate that they had to use them, and it allowed for the Knicks players to rest. Welcome, Joe. He says, man, the Pacers had this game and choked it away. Tyrese looked lost. Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. That's what it comes down to for me. Yeah, you're going to have some bad calls go against you, but this was a situation here. The Pacers just coughed it up. It's as simple as that. It was a disappointing close to this game. They did not have somebody step up in the late game situation. And to Tyrese's credit, that's an area in the clutch. He's been one of the better players consistently in the league. I haven't looked at that stat lately because a lot of the Pacers' wins this season were by double digits. But I think at some point a couple months ago, Tyrese over the last couple seasons was a top 3 player in the clutch, which is 5 points or less game in the final 5 minutes. But yeah, there's something was up with Haliburton because the three turnovers over the final 4 minutes, the lack of assertiveness, he knows he's got to put up more than 6 shots. He put up the same number of shots as Aaron Nesmith. Obi Toppin attempted more shots than him. Isaiah Jackson attempted the same number of shots as him. I think Pacer fans would be good if he put up 15 shots and you lost. Much more than he's 2 for 6 with 6 points. He's the lowest scoring Pacer among the 9 that played. That tells you all you need to know. You're paying him max money starting July 1. You need him to play like max money. And if there is an injury, if he's not 100%, if that back is problematic, you tell the coaching staff. You make that adjustment and you remove him from the situation. You put TJ McConnell in there because if you're hurting yourself, you're hurting others and the team as well. So that's absolutely going to be a talking point going into game 2 coming up on Wednesday. He didn't even play like an all-star tonight. He knows it. He's going to probably read all your tweets about it because that's what he does. Talk things over with his skills trainer as well. And I'm curious what we'll see from him moving to the next game. Absolutely. Woo, a lot more comments. Appreciate everybody joining on. If you missed it and joined us in late, feel free to catch up on the podcast, or you can watch a replay of this after the fact here. I kind of lost my place, but Alex says, this is absurd, Scott. I'm irate. I feel you, man. I've been there, done that as a fan for other teams, and I understand the frustration. I think you got to look inside first with this Pacers team and how they didn't rise to the moment, how they didn't have a player take over, how they committed those foolish turnovers late, how they committed those 2 inbound fouls before the ball's even inbounded. Those are mental mistakes. Those are on you. I understand the frustration with the kick ball call that shouldn't have been, or the moving screen. That's understandable. But the Pacers were outplayed down the stretch. There's no argument about that. And stars win in the playoffs. Stars delivered. Jalen Brunson did that and was the best player on the floor as expected. Brunson going to break his neck from all that self-induced whiplash. I appreciate the comedy here tonight. Just be you. Sounds like something from last night on Netflix with the roast of Tom Brady, which if you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend that. That was really good. I don't want to hear that, Derby. It's hard to beat the refs. That was not the case tonight. This was not the old Josh McRoberts. It's tough to win when it's 5-on-8. I'll never forget that comment from him back when he played at Carmel his senior year. MK Sinks, 4 of 5 Knicks starters played 40 minutes. Pacers had none. Curious to see how this one plays out next game. That's how I led my at the buzzer column, essentially, on fieldhousefiles.com. This series is a war of attrition. I was surprised the physicality wasn't exactly as intense as I was expecting in this one. I expected for a couple hard fouls to be having to be reviewed because of maybe Hartenstein punishing Haliburton and putting him on his ass. But in turn, Tyrese didn't go to the free throw line at all tonight. He didn't want that, and didn't really attack as much. Finished with 8 assists, but no free throw attempts. I need to look back at some of the tape, but I'm curious how many times he even attacked and went to the basket for the possibility to draw a foul. Maybe, again, that speaks to his low back soreness, a hard fall, and something he's trying to avoid there. But it's a war of attrition. And in this one, I think Rick Carlisle especially was trying to play the minutes game. And what I mean by that is he doesn't mind the Knicks playing their guys 45, 46 minutes. He's going to get his bench in. He's playing Isaiah Jackson 14 minutes and Ben Shepherd 18 minutes. And in the long run, over a 7-game series, it's the war of attrition. But this is a tough one to squander ultimately in this one. Tell the truth. Every time the whistle stopped, the Pacers went up 8-10. That's the only story of the game. I'm not putting the story of the game on the officiating. Very rarely will I do that. I think the story was Jalen Brunson's dominance and where was Tyrese Haliburton. To me, that was the overriding theme in this one. Derby says Carlisle goofed on McConnell, but McConnell did have a few bad plays before he came out. Yeah, I would agree. I wanted to see McConnell finish the game. I wanted to see him get more than 2 minutes in that fourth quarter. That's for sure. Early on in the game, he did a good job, relatively good job pressuring Brunson, causing things to be chaotic. TJ is also, tonight, he was the Pacers' best point guard. You should be rewarded as such. I was concerned that he was going to play over 30 minutes or 28 minutes. I think his sweet spot, playing as hard as he does and attacking as hard as he does, I think that's about 25 minutes. Well, tonight, he barely played 22 minutes, 6 minutes in the second half. There were more minutes on the court that had TJ McConnell's name on them that I would have liked to see. PJ says national people expected Indy to come out timid like they did. Did they? I mean, I saw where national reporters all picked the Knicks to win the series, but I don't believe the timidness. Maybe I missed it, and maybe you're paying attention to the wrong people in all that. I don't know why you'd expect this Pacers team to come out soft or timid by any means. I thought they played well enough in the first quarter. They won the second quarter by 9, and it would have been by 12 if not for Hartenstein's half-court heave going down. And remember, the second quarter is the Pacers' worst this season. So I thought that was a very encouraging sign for the Pacers that the second quarter that they had, considering it has been their worst of the season. Chris Robertson joins the chat, and welcome. He says, you're right, Scott. Pacers can't win this series with Haliburton taking 6 shots and scoring 6 points. Needed TJ more in the fourth. Yep, absolutely. Tell the truth. There's no way in hell you can't believe that was rigged. No, there is no way in hell I believe that was rigged. I don't know what you want me to tell you. I appreciate you joining, but totally disagree with those kinds of assessments. I do not believe in any of that. There's just too many people that would have to be involved for that situation. You have the best official, in my opinion, in Zach Zarba out there. He wouldn't allow for that to happen. It's when the others make the mistakes, he can clean it up to some extent, but what are we doing here? Where are you? Scott, do I think the series is over? Derby, no. What are we doing? This is game 1. The series hasn't even started barely just yet. The Pacers threw this one away late, but, if you could have gotten this one, stolen home court advantage, probably come up short in game 2, presumably, get back home where they're undefeated over the last month, where they haven't lost and played really well in front of a sellout home crowd. They'd have their 21 sellout of the season Friday night. Why would you give up? I mean, that's as bad as saying that this game was rigged, in my opinion. Obi's between the leg was fired. Yeah, it was great, but who cares? You lost the game. I know it's very pragmatic way of me thinking, but that's what it comes down to for me. If that was in a win and you got up 20 on that, great. Neesmith's dunk, fantastic. But you know what I love more, as I tweeted? Josh Hart, his effort on the glass, going after it. Pacers were +3 on the glass at halftime. They did an excellent job in the first half rebounding, not so much in the second half. Gave up 8 offensive rebounds, and the Pacers were -8 on the glass for the night. That's one reason you're unable to win. Yeah, it does get crazy with the twirly fingers constantly for reviews, right? Like, I'm tired of seeing it. We don't need to keep seeing it. And here's the thing. I don't know how many of you have gone to, high school games or rec games or anything like that. There are kids, I'll even see them at Halliburton's camp or other camps. There will be a call they don't like, and instinctual, they'll just twirl their fingers as if there's even a replay or anything like that. That's an example of these young players learning from the pros and modeling themselves. I think it's out of hand. I hate reviews at this point. They just cloud the game, slow it down. And if you're the Pacers, it screwed you up. It allowed for the Knicks to get the rest late in the game, and you don't want them to get rest. Your whole game plan is to tire them down, not allow them to sub. They had 3 subs. One got 4 minutes, one got 10, and another got 12. That's it. You basically had TJ McConnell play almost as much as those 3 guys off the bench alone. Just be you. I would get rid of the last 2-minute report. What good does it do? I agree. I get the original point of it. It was for the transparency for people like Tell the Truth out there who doesn't agree with me or agree with those assessments. But I think you can see what went on out there. You have those the pool report, like I read from Zach Azarba about the kicked ball, but I don't think the last 2-minute report does anyone any good. It makes the officials look bad. It makes players in some cases look bad. If anything, what I would like to see is for the head official to do like a 5-minute press conference, answer a few questions about the game. If they're going to be a character in these games, why not allow for them to speak up and have questions asked of them so you have more transparency? I would have that rather than a last 2-minute report. Kevin, he says, I disagree on not having replay. Without replay, you open it up to potential bad refs deciding the game, intentional or not. Replay gives fans the idea the game is fair, I guess. But at the same time, what is everybody talking about tonight, Kevin? Everyone's talking about the fact that it was not fair, that the Pacers got a bad shake, that a couple of calls went against them, that they were disappointed. Certain things were not reviewed. So I don't think you can win either way. And I'm all for acknowledging that certain things should be reviewable, but maybe there is now a point in the game where we need to eliminate reviews rather than adding to them. Just a thought, nonetheless. Derby, what did Haliburton say after the game about his too late criticals? I'm not sure yet. Haven't heard because I was writing my post-game story real quickly and then jumping on here for my live. I'll have all that coverage for you probably tomorrow at fieldhousefiles.com with his comments and video. You can watch what he had to say at the podium as well. Russell joining says, very sad. Brunson fouled Turner in the third quarter and it was challenged and they still got it wrong. Official number 39. So that would be Tyler Ford. Should be banned. I don't know what you're saying there, but there's some bad calls. There was one. Yeah, I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, absolutely. It was not in the corner though. I guess I added in the corner. It was underneath the basket. Brunson leveled his shoulder into Miles Turner. That was absolutely a foul, and they overturned that. I agree with you. And to go back to Kevin earlier, that's why what does replay do when they clearly got it right? Question themselves, go to the monitor, correct it, even though now they have it wrong. The other thing, the unspoken thing, if you want to talk about it in terms of officiating and replay, is officials second guess themselves because of it. They know if they botch the call, if one of the coaches could use a challenge. I think you would lead to more assertiveness, more accurate calls potentially if you got rid of replay just because of those facts. Speaking of Isaiah, hey, here's some notable game coverage. I appreciate this. Let's spin the game forward. I'm kind of tired talking about officiating, although it's understandable after this one. Just Be You says, speaking of Isaiah Jackson, I really liked his energy tonight. Absolutely. Ran the floor well, which is one thing. Secondly, rebounded and also had several great putbacks at the rim. I think for all those reasons, that's why the Pacers are doing that. Here's what Miles Turner had to say post-game. I'm getting from a buddy at the podium. I think this is Miles Turner. I think it's best when players decide the outcome of the game. I think we're all looking forward to that last 2-minute report coming out. I think there were 2 controversial calls, the kick ball, which, well, we already acknowledged they messed up, couldn't correct. You clearly see that on the replay. Yes, you do, but nothing can change there. So Miles Turner going all in, saying upset with the officiating. I'll be curious what the league says tomorrow, but again, it doesn't change anything. So does it really matter? Derby says Brunson completely outplayed Haliburton. He's pretty much unstoppable, right? Man, that's the difference in the series so far. Haliburton excelled. He played at an all-NBA level. Haliburton did not. 6 points, fewest points of the nine Pacers who played tonight. 2 of 6 shooting. That speaks for itself. And on top of that, 3 turnovers by Haliburton in the final 4 minutes when the Pacers were outscored 17-8 down the stretch. That was the critical turning point right there. Felt like this was ours to lose after the first 3.5 quarters. Disappointing that we dropped this one. That's from Ethan talking about the Pacers. I would agree. That's exactly what that tweet I referenced mid-4th quarter is. The Pacers had climbed along. They let the Knicks go on an 8-0 run. They got back up by 5 there, middle of the 4th quarter, and it felt like things were teetering. Jalen Brunson made a 3-pointer. Then he went to the foul line. And at that point, instead of putting the game away like they should have, we saw them allow for the Knicks to hang around. And by hanging around, they were able to come back, complete the comeback, and close off the Pacers like the better team that the Knicks were tonight in the aggregate. Sad to watch a lie to our face. I'm not even sure what he's saying. Refs controlled the entire game. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. We're going to move on here. Timberwolves taking it to the Nuggets. Wow. Appreciate the update, Joe. I'm unable to watch it just now because I'm live on here. Fully expected the Nuggets to come away with this series. And if they get that one, it'd be a 2-0 lead. And they would have not only stolen home court, but won both games in Denver and done so tonight. Probably a long ways to go. But Rudy Gobert out tonight after the birth of his first kid. So that would be substantial and wildly surprising in this one. No doubt about that. Got a Knicks fan in here. Welcome. Everybody's welcome here to converse here post-game. Ethan says, are Tyrese's struggles health-related, or are we just seeing him in his own way struggle from a mental standpoint? It's obviously hard to say exactly, but I got to believe it's that back. He's been on the injury report 4 straight games as questionable with low back soreness. Your only reason you were put on the injury report is if there's something valid there. You can't have a game or risk being fined, I guess, like Philadelphia has several times. I think a couple other teams have as well. If Tyrese got to a game, all of a sudden it became a game time decision or was ruled out right before the game, and there was no mention of him on the injury report, they would be fine. It'd probably be $75,000, $100,000. So the Pacers are transparent about their injury report. It's very small right now. It's Matherin out for the season. And for the last 4 games, Tyrese low back soreness. It's nothing new. It's something he's dealt with his entire career. It's been explained. It's basically kind of genetics. He's always dealt with low back soreness, but it's something this Pacers training staff, led by Josh Corbeil, really have to try to mitigate and keep down and keep from flaring up. Even the first time, I think, would have been game 4 at home against the Milwaukee Bucks. About an hour before game time, Tyrese was added to the report as it flared up and all of a sudden became a threat not to play. And ever since then, he's been bothering by it. Now, we did have a couple days off between games, 3 in total after they won on Thursday. But I think that's going to be something he struggles with. I would say there's probably a mental aspect in terms of him not getting shots up, because this team is better off when he's putting the shots up and having an opportunity. I'm not saying 20 shots per game, but when TJ McConnell's putting up 16, you're the star of the team. You have full right to take more shots out there. And him passing it up. I mean, I was at Fever practice today, and there was a situation where Christy Side stopped things and goes, Caitlin Clark, you are who you are. If you pass up a wide open shot like that, we are worse off. We are better off with you taking that open shot. And I think that was a lot the case here today with Tyrese Haliburton. Again, 6 points, 6 shots, fewest points among the Pacers who played. But we will never know, I don't think, maybe until after the season at best, how much this low back soreness is really ailing Tyrese. What we do know, he's not 100%. He's not going to be that till after the season. We know that's certainly bothering him to the point where he's getting treatment and he's on the injury report. What else here? We got a lot of post game here. Joe says, I think Tyrese will come strong next game and get the split. Maybe. It's hard to say. Just because in the postseason and really since the All-Star break, he's not been his full self. He's had a few breakout games. I don't think he had any spectacular ones in Series 1. First couple of games were Siakam, Miles Turner had a game, and then it was the bench. This was T.J. McConnell and Obi Toppin in Game 6, finishing off that series. PJ says, I was referring to the way the Pacers came out timid against the Bucks in that opener, and tonight they didn't do that, though many thought that for a bright young team. All right, that's maybe a little bit more reasonable to start, and that's understandable because this Pacers team has not started games well. Didn't start this one great for the first couple minutes. I think, what'd they do? Fall down 8-4, but then they went on an 8-0 run. Brunson scored 10 of the first 12 points from the Knicks. Pacers responded. So if that's what you mean, yes, I totally agree. I thought you meant the entire game, just be timid and not rising to the moment, which I wouldn't expect that at all. Big task at hand. I'm not making excuses. You do have some fans, obviously frustrated, but that's why they're fans. And I understand that. I accept that. I just don't like leaning into the officiating calls and all of that because the Pacers could have finished this game with 5-6 minutes left. You allowed it to get, and things happen there. Just boggled on what you do with Ty, who's your star max player, but can't seem to have back-to-back good games together. Absolutely. That's confounding, and that's something that Rick Carlisle and his staff have to figure out. At some point, you got to make the best team decision, and tonight it felt like with 5-6 minutes left, that was bringing back T.J. McConnell to close, potentially. You were up by 5. You don't want to allow for the Knicks to go on one last final run. And what do? Brunson does. He scores 12 points. The Pacers score 8 the rest of the way. McConnell would have helped you, I think, at both ends. And Tyrese turned it over 3 times. I'm not saying TJ would have been perfect. I'm not saying anyone else would have been perfect. But it was a disappointing end for the entire team, but especially with Tyrese having more turnovers than points in the final minutes. Chris Burton, welcome. He says when there's a 9-player rotation and only one player took less shot attempts than Tyrese, your star player, he has to shoot the ball 15 to 20. I'm going to go a little less than that threshold, Chris, although I completely agree and get what you're saying with those sentiments. With Tyrese, I'm going to go more in the 12 to 16 shots per game. I think that's his perfect range. If he gets over that, I worry that it's too ball dominant and the others didn't get involved as much. But I know exactly what you're saying and agree. Kevin says this would have been worse without replay. The game would have been over at the 1-minute mark when they called the foul on Haliburton. That would have put Brunson at the line. What else we got here? Everybody's banged up this time of year. Knicks just lost Bogey. Yeah, you're right, Derby. Julius Randle, they're without. Bogey, they're without. That's basically 2 starters right there. So the Knicks have their excuses as well, even if Tyrese isn't 100%. And Mathurin, yes, he's not available, but he's kind of your 6th, 7th man. He'd probably maybe be starting, but I don't think so. I think he'd be one of your first subs off the bench along with Toppin and with McConnell, and he'd probably be getting the minutes over Shepherd. Maybe you'd stretch to 9 and now 10 with Jackson. But yeah, that's exactly why you can't get too caught up in injuries, because this time of year, everyone has them. Some are worse than others. No doubt about that, right? With the Bucks, you had Giannis and Dame out. As I said, that's 2 All-Stars, 2 future Hall of Famers. That's severe and really didn't help give Milwaukee a chance to win that series. Is it true 2 of the officials tonight were from New York and the other from New Jersey? I can look up their locations when I'm not live right now. Zarba, I believe, is from New York area. I'm not positive about that. I know Tyler Ford went to Ball State. I forget where he's originally from. But again, you're deep in the weeds here. I can't buy into any bias if that's what you're getting at there. Ethan says, despite the Pacers' loss, I've been super impressed with the contributions from Nembhard and Toppin. They've risen to the occasion. Shepherd as well deserves some love. Absolutely. I would agree with that. Especially Shep. He's a rookie. And how about the moments that they threw him into tonight, Ethan? No doubt about that. He's a guy that, you can see that, what 4 years in college does for you. Now, it was within the same system. He came into this league and was taken in the first round. Remember, he had high expectations, and the Pacers did for him. He was a first-round pick, but he was a more complete package than Jarris Walker was. That's why you're seeing him out there. He can knock down threes, and he can defend. But this is asking a lot of him. Not only is he in round 2 of the playoffs, but at MSG. I can't even describe the feeling there on the court. At MSG with New Yorkers yelling at you, hollering at you, and the playoff atmosphere. That's incredibly difficult. Nembhard, I said he was the X factor for the first series. You could really almost argue he's the X factor for this one. And by that, I mean, you can't include Haliburton and Siakam, because otherwise I would include Siakam probably as the one. You need him to take over a game or two and be a star player like he is. But so much hinges, I think, on Nembhard's defense, and what he and the team are trying to do with Brunson. And no one's brought it up here, but let's talk about Brunson and how you stop him. How about adjustments there? Because if he goes off for 43 points like he did tonight, Pacers aren't winning this series. I can tell you that. They aren't. They allow for a star player to go off like Brunson did tonight, they're in deep trouble. And so that's why I wanted to see them trap earlier on. They started to trap, I think, midway through the third quarter. Miles went out. I can remember the possession left to right. They did that. Brunson threw the ball away. And for him, that was one of his 4 turnovers. So we mentioned Haliburton's 3 turnovers. Let's mention Brunson's 4 turnovers. You apply more pressure, make things a little bit more difficult for him. I think the Pacers should be more comfortable if they lost because Josh Hart went for 35 and DiVincenzo added 30 instead of Brunson going for 43. I think you keep Brunson to 30, 35, 33-ish. That's really your sweet spot. Make everyone else beat you. That you can, I think, accept out there. But I agree with those comments, Ethan. Toppin's been really good the last few games. He's probably feeling more pressure than anyone. He'd probably be the one you could understand comes out a little timid, a little bit nervous in this one. And McConnell's just your wily vet. He's just the veteran right there. That's in control of the moment, of himself, and was the Pacers' top point guard in tonight's game. All right, what else do we got here? Appreciate everyone joining on. If you haven't done so already, read my work at fieldhousefiles.com. Make sure you're subscribed there to get everything delivered directly to your inbox. Full Pacers and now Caitlin Clark coverage. I can tell you more people are reading those than Pacers coverage right now. It's unreal, her audience. And tonight I was at a special gala really for her. And Peyton Manning was there as well over at Newfields here near downtown area. I'll get into that in a separate live, though, here with Pacer fans. Brunson is a star every single game. Yeah, and that's why the Knicks are where they are right now. By the way, I want to speak to the alumni, and you can see a full list of the individuals, the former Knicks, current Yankees, former Yankees, current Jets and Giants, a number of stars, Ben Stiller, several other actors that were at the game. That's one of the most impressive things about MSG, the star power and the stars that come out for playoff games like this. The NBA is better when New York is in the playoffs just because of so much of that. What else do we got here? Brunson is a beast. Yep, I completely agree. Colts fan says you can't base this game off stats completely other than visits to the foul line. I think you'd base it off of Brunson scoring 43 and dominating this game. I think you can talk about his free throw shooting, which is impressive, 14 for 14. And you can talk about the way the Pacers failed to close the game. Those are the stats that stick out to me. If you're talking plus minus, I could not care less. I'm not a plus minus guy. Some mention that. OG Anunoby plus 12. Great. What does that tell me? Right. So that's complicated. I agree with a lot of that. The Colts fan also adds Knicks play a rat game, and there was literally no real basketball played tonight. All right, we're moving on. I don't understand what you're getting at there. Needed more from Toppin. He was effective when out there. Needed more of him. Yeah, he played 19 minutes. You got Isaiah, who was productive in his minutes. I'm not worried about the bigs as much as the guards. You needed more from your backcourt. 17 points combined from Haliburton and Nembhard, where in comparison, DiVincenzo himself scored 25 points, including that go-ahead three-pointer to make it 118-115 and put the game away with 40 seconds left. So I think you want to see more from the Pacers guards is the main thing here in this. Chris adds one thing about team coaching staff. They respond very well after the loss. They don't think the Knicks can keep up with the entire series when each Knicks player plays so many minutes. I agree. Pacers as a whole this season has done very well responding after losses. I don't have the stat in front of me, but they're well above 500 on that note. Pacers aren't going to let this one get them down. I think they should only be frustrated with themselves. Yes, the officiating, there was a couple calls that pisses them off. I get that. But again, they took it out of their control and made costly mistakes, costly turnovers, several fouls that were just dumb, that ultimately impacted the game. And if they would have handled it earlier before that 4-minute stretch, we're talking about an entirely different game. So I think that's where who are the leaders on this team? Who needs to step up? Miles, Tyrese, Pascal, James Johnson as well. That's where we need to see a response, a positive response to come from this poor moment that the Pacers are feeling right now. This leaves them with a bitter taste in their mouths. There's no doubt about this one. Put Jarris on Brunson. Boom, problem solved. There's a lot of Jarris love out there. I can tell a lot of you did not watch Mad Ants games. I watched just about every Mad Ants home game. I was at them. His defense improved, but he just gambles so much, and this would not be the time to throw him out there. You got to be more disciplined. I know it'd be here's the thing that I'm torn about. The Pacers aren't winning a title this year. Can we all agree about that? And so in going through this process, you would much rather for Mathurin, who's injured, and Jarris to get valuable experience. Those are pieces that the Pacers believe in, that they want to be part of this franchise for the next half dozen years at least. And so it's too bad you're not getting Jarris Walker minutes out there. Your top 8 pick. That said, man, it'd really set you back, I think, and get you create some growing pains. If you don't play him in the regular season, you can't put him out there in this moment. You just can't. I understand the desire and want, though, for so many out there. Wow, a total blowout. Thanks for the update, MK Sinks. Wolves are up 66-37 in the third quarter. What in the world is happening with the Nuggets right now? My goodness. The DiVincenzo laid 3. Haliburton didn't even shade over to him. Brunson hit him. Nesmith was shading to Brunson's side. Haliburton makes a desperation sprint. That kills us. That's something I need to look back at the film. But, I mean, Haliburton's admittedly not a great defender. He's not. That's oftentimes why McConnell will come in and Haliburton goes out for offense-defense substitution. That requires communication here. If you're getting screened and, do you go over, under, trapping? What are you doing here? There's a lot you can criticize with that game. The DiVincenzo 3, to give that one up. That one hurt. And I know in the back of their minds, they were still probably frustrated by that kickball that now the officials after the fact have admitted it was a handball, not a kickball. Should have been a legal steal right there. Putting Jarris on Brunson would disrupt him and he wouldn't be able to get that step back because Jarris had that length. No, I think he'd blow by him. That's what I would think. I think Jalen would couple crossovers, step back, charge forward. That's at least what I think. I could be wrong, but I don't think that would be successful in adding length and adding versatility. You'd have a 1 versus like a 3 or 4 out there. That's a tough go. I feel like every time the Pacers send 2 to Brunson, they get burned. A lot of wheeze here. Once we get set into the rotation, Dante DiVincenzo killed us, the Pacers, tonight. Yeah, Dante, he's a real X factor in the series. The Villanova guys combined. You know what Brunson is. You put him over here. You know he's going for 35. You hope to keep him from going for 40. Then there's Josh Hart and what he's able to do at both ends of the floor. He's the top rebounder tonight. He really plays their 4 spot. That's why throwing Obi Toppin in there creates a little different matchup. If you can stretch him out away from the basket a little bit more, create some problem areas. But Josh Hart's tremendous. DiVincenzo is really good. You can see why this is what the Knicks wanted to do. And on top of that, what matters? Chemistry. And those guys go back to their Villanova days. They just won in Philadelphia in the same arena where Villanova plays and has success. So that's why that chemistry matters. And having guys that have won, that's why Jalen Brunson, I wouldn't have overlooked him when the Pacers or any team had a first-round pick in that 2018 draft. He is a winner. And if you're picking late in the 20s, you're basically picking a flyer, a guy that you hope is on the team after the rookie contract after 4 years. I would have taken a flyer. I absolutely would have on Jalen Brunson back then. The Pacers didn't have a true point guard, needed a point guard, and finally fixed that with Haliburton a couple years ago. Take a couple more questions here. We have gone long. I think this is our longest live post-game show. We're the only post-game show for Pacer fans here discussing after this one. Serious question. Is TJ McConnell really that good? Yeah, he is. He's having spurts, and I think also what you're seeing from him is the Knicks and other teams are content with him having success in the mid-range. Why? it's very much like giving up what arguably the analytics say is the awful shot, right? As a team, you don't want to get up threes, especially in the corner, and you don't want to give up layups. So when TJ goes in for his mid-range 8 feet out, while it's nearly automatic for him, most players it's not. Most players struggle with that, and it's a lower percentage shot. So I view that as opposing teams, one, not taking him as seriously as they should, but secondly, being content with him taking that shot rather than a three-pointer by somebody else. This isn't just tonight, by the way, big task. If you haven't watched him lately, he did it in game 6 to beat the Bucks to close them out. And he was the Pacers' most consistent player since the All-Star break. So you're going back to early February there. He's been their most consistent player. And what drove me nuts is he was out of the rotation for game 1. And TJ was also getting several DNP's, coaches' decisions. I think I retweeted an old tweet of mine from January where he's saying he is too much of a weapon out there to be getting do not plays. And here's yet again a perfect example of what TJ does at both ends of the court. His high intensity, the jolt of energy he provides, the way in which he's able to push the pace, flow into Obi Toppin, get that second unit running. I would like to see him play more than the 22 minutes that he got tonight, especially in consideration for how little Tyrese was able to contribute. And it wasn't all just Tyrese. He also had defenders. DiVincenzo, I think Hart switched on him several times. Give credit to the defense as well for quieting what Tyrese was able to do out there. Take a couple more questions here on this post-game live. If you join late, you can watch a replay, or I will be posting it on the Fieldhouse Files podcast. Big task adds, I respect the team. Yeah, there's a lot to respect about this Pacers team. That's why it's a fun team for me to cover. It's my 12th year on the beat, which is crazy. So I was there in 2013 when these two teams met last. And I was there in 2014, the following year, when that Pacers team won a series. It was their last series that they had won until this most recent one against Milwaukee. I was there with Frank and Nate Bjorkgren, and now with Rick Carlisle. So that provides me with a lot of context and a lot of perspective in this one. Yeah, TJ is him, but I feel like next season will be his last in Indiana, unfortunately. Yeah, that's probably the case, but mostly due to age. He's now, 30 years old, be 31, I think, next year. As a point guard, you depend on speed, and he's already maximized his career. He went undrafted, played for the 76ers on an undrafted contract, and after that contract was up, the 76ers didn't even offer him. They didn't even offer him. So he came to Indiana on his first contract, his next contract, first in Indiana. Was a 2-year deal, if I remember right. 1 year guaranteed, the second year being a team option. That's what he bought into. He bought into working and playing for Nate McMillan and being the third string point guard behind Aaron Holiday. He's the third string point guard this year behind Tyrese Haliburton and behind Andrew Nembhard. And what does he continue to do? Outplay and earn his way into the rotation and become tonight the Pacers' best player, most reliable player in this one, in the first half at least, when he was so big, kept them in it, kept them in front, kept the pace moving. We talk about pace enough, and yet fast break points, the Pacers were outscored on the run tonight, 20-18. They were also out-rebounded by 8. Those were two key factors coming in. Physicality, free throws weren't too much of a differential. Excuse me. The Knicks obviously shot more, made more, 22 of 26. The Pacers were 15 of 19. I have no way to understand Siakam missing free throws. Missed his first 2, shooting below 70% from the free throw line this season. I think his second worst number was 62% his second year in the league, if I remember right. Otherwise, this is one of his worst free throw shooting seasons. I'll have to ask him why he believes that's the case. It's just weird to see for such a good player. Do you think that could be due to a bad agent for his career of TJ? No, not at all. It's actually the opposite. He has one of the best agents in the league in Mark Bartelstein, if that's what you're talking about. And so it's been TJ having a good agent and then TJ outplaying everywhere he's gone. He went undrafted and excelled in Philly. They didn't want him back, came to Indy, excelled, got a new contract. And this current contract is a rich one. He's making over $9 million per year, where he's classified as your third string point guard. Some called it an untradeable contract. Some questioned, should you trade him to move on from him? I thought after they drafted Ben Shepherd and then they obviously signed Bruce Brown in free agency. I reported at that point time he was finally dispensable. You could finally move on from him and at least afford to. Before that, Rick Carlisle's always hesitant not to have good point guards. He really values point guards. And beyond that, we've seen the injuries come down to this Pacers team, and he's just a reliable contributor. You have to think twice about doing that. And sometimes the best deals are the ones that you do not do. And the Pacers are very fortunate that they did not move on from TJ McConnell at all in the offseason or during the season, because there were several teams interested. Charlotte, Phoenix, LA's, Orlando, several were. But the Pacers just weren't having it. So there you go. A couple more. Did you see the plan for the checkered sections for the home game? Unpopular opinion, stick with gold out. I have not. Have they announced? I have not seen that if they've announced it. If you're referencing an old tweet, they did the checkered patterns like 10 years ago, I remember. I don't know about this year, though. 76ers should have beaten the Knicks every game in their series, too. They had so many close games. Yeah, Mr. Tim, that's absolutely right. It was amazing. The Knicks just didn't want to win going away. What was it? Game 5, the Knicks should have put the 76ers actually away, and the 76ers hung around and won. It was basically this game as a whole where the Pacers didn't put away the Knicks. The Knicks came back to one. And I do believe the 76ers would have won that if you had a healthy Embiid. I was just stunned with what they were able to come away with and get from Joel Embiid despite his injury and despite playing with Bell's palsy. All the best to him and everyone. All right, that's going to wrap up this post-game show here. Pacers lose 121-117, a game one loss in the second round series. It's their first time advancing to the second round since 2014 when the team featured Paul George, David West, George Hill, Roy Hibbert, and Lance Stevenson. So it is good that the Pacers have playing into May. It's good we have Pacers and Racers, and I'm going to add Caitlin Clark and the Fever into that fold as well. But a lot for Rick Carlisle's team to learn from. They're going to be watching back the film, I guarantee you, tonight in Manhattan as they review the film, pick their spots. I know Tyrese did not have a great game, but there's no one tougher on himself more than him. And so health willing, and we don't know how his back is, other than he said a couple games ago, I'm okay. Given that, I would expect him to have a good bounce back game. We just don't know how much that's hampering him or bothering him. And if that's the case moving forward, you're going to have to adapt the rest of the team, play other guys. But a lot we will talk about here moving forward. Appreciate everyone joining this live. I'll have another one after every single Pacers playoff game. Game 2 is on Wednesday at Madison Square Garden. That wraps up this live post-game show on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you again soon.